a podcast that's fun and deep, like a couple of friends catching up and talking about all the topics. Welcome to the Come On Over Show. I'm your host, Chloe Somerfield, and this is the place where theology, motherhood, and friendship meet. Sometimes sweet, sometimes sassy, always honest. Join me each week as I sit down and share biblical and culturally relevant topics, sometimes with friends that will sharpen your mind, encourage your heart, and help you flourish, because we all need some good girl time. Hello, and welcome back to the Come On Over Show. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but that was pretty cool. Okay, so long-awaited episode. So many of you have been asking about the move to the US, why, how, what, all those juicy questions. So let's get into it. I hope that you, if you haven't already, go back and listen to the introductory episode. It shares a little bit about me, where I'm coming from with the podcast, what you can expect going forward. And I guess this is more of a deep dive into our journey specifically to the US. So, why America? Well, and that's probably the biggest question people have asked, because it doesn't take much to look at the news and be like, oh my gosh, what is happening? The world is a dumpster fire. So, yeah, I get that. But anyway, I'll refrain. I'll refrain from talking about politics for now on this podcast. So, we have had America in our hearts. When I say we, I mean my husband and I. So we have both, prior to meeting each other, both thought about something to do with being in America, whether that was living there, working there, doing some type of ministry. Then when we got married, we received some joint words around America, and a lot of people that have known us and that have walked with us over several years can also testify to that fact. And we just kind of put it out of our minds for a number of years. We were like, okay, well, if the Lord opens a door, then cool, but otherwise we're just going to keep doing what we're doing here. So we did that. Ryan, my husband, he works in film, audio, visual production industry. So he was in like full-fledged business back here, back in Australia. And so the idea of like packing up and moving didn't seem like something we could really do anyway. And then fast track up to 2023, that's when we really started to dream and envision a different future for our lives. I think both of us were feeling like the Australian dream was dying, the possibility of being able to afford a home, and for me to stay at home with the kids it's pretty much impossible unless you live maybe in the middle of like the Kununurra, which is in Western Australia. So I don't know. It just didn't really feel like it was plausible. And we just, I don't know, we were feeling a bit like stuck, felt like there was something more for us. And one of my beautiful friends, Vanessa, she came with us away for a little trip. And it was that weekend where we really started to talk it out and see a future or a life for us that wasn't necessarily in Sydney like we'd always thought it would be. And that weekend we came home and we thought, you know what, let's just look at the green card lottery, which is every year the US opens up a certain number of visas, or a lottery in a lottery sort of scheme. And so we both applied, and you don't get to find out until I think 5 months later, or maybe 6 months later. It put us back in like May the following year. What we had decided though is that we were going to go to the US to do a scouting trip, because Ryan had a work convention in Vegas. And then we decided, well, where would we want to go in America if we did move? And the only place that we were really interested in was Tennessee, and specifically Nashville, because we knew already that there were a lot of Australians there, and in terms of what my husband does for work, it made sense, and in terms of, I didn't come here to set out to be the next like music sensation, but if I was going to songwrite and release music, that also just felt like a good place to be. So we considered all that. We went to Nashville. We also went to Chattanooga, which is a smaller town, much smaller than Nashville. It's about 2.5 hours southeast. And yeah, we had a little look around these areas. We fell in love with Nashville. To be honest, we only spent like 2 days in Chattanooga. We spent most of the time in Nashville because we were just kind of like, that's what's going to happen. Anyway, God had other plans, and we returned from that trip, and we realized that we were going to need some serious money if we were going to pack up our lives and start over. And it just so happened that weekend, so we came back home. I remember this. We landed on a Thursday, and then we had lunch organized with a couple, which was Ryan's. He's known them for years. They're like second parents to him. And we were just talking with them about some of our goals and dreams and just how hard it is to own a home in Australia, and just, feeling a bit, I don't want to say stuck. I think for me, like at that time, Stephanie was 2. And I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant with Jessie. So all this while we're traveling with our almost 2-year-old, and I'm pregnant with Jessie. And I think when you start having children, you really start to think through the life that you're building and the life that you're giving to your kids, I guess. You just, you're no longer living for yourself, and it's not, there is a cause and effect and there's decisions to be made. So that probably spurred on a lot of these thoughts and resurrected a lot of the dreams that we had in our hearts from years prior. So back to the lunch. We have lunch with this couple. We're telling them just about some of the struggles, and we mentioned how we would love to own a home, but, in Australia, trying to save up for a deposit is near impossible, especially if you're only on one income. It's really hard. Like we're averaging $1 million homes in Sydney, and you need like a combined income of nearly 300K if you need to live in Australia. Now, don't quote me on that, okay, guys? I don't have the facts in front of me. It seems right from what I've possibly read recently. Anyway, like I said, don't want to get into politics or economics too much on this podcast. Breaking my own rules. Okay, so they ended up offering us an incredible opportunity, and they were like, listen, if you come and live on the farm, and guys, this was not a hard decision. They lived on 46 acres. They were surrounded by rolling hills. There's cows and chickens, and you can see horses in the paddock, and there's a lake. Like, it is stunning. They are just salt of the earth, beautiful people. And they were like, if you can make a sacrifice and downsize and live in this like tiny garage converted loft, then, basically you live here, save up your money, and help us out occasionally with the animals and when they go away and stuff. And we help each other out, and the whole purpose of you moving in here is to save some serious buck. And at the time, they did not know that we were thinking about moving to America. It was either going to be move to America or buy a home in Australia. Like, I think what's important to explain is that at this point, we were not completely tethered to the idea of moving to the US. We were very neutral, and I think that's super important when you are praying through a really big decision, when you are tossing up a huge life-altering an event. It's really important as much as you possibly can to stay neutral, because if you are swayed or you're biased either way, it can really affect your prayer life, and it can it can skew your ability to discern correctly if God is leading you in either direction. And so as much as possible, we were like, Lord, you know what? At this point, and truly I can say this with full confidence, I was going to be happy either way if God was in it. And so, I mean, just the fact that they offered us that and we were like, yes, that's not hard to say no to. That just felt like God opening a door, because we were saying to each other that, we are going to need some serious savings. So from that conversation, I think it took about 2.5 months to pack everything up. We had to downsize significantly because, guys, we came from a 4-bedroom, 3-car garage house, and we downsized into a double garage converted loft. So I'm talking, so you think of a double garage, and then that's all one open room, and then there was upstairs, and it was the same one big open room. There was one like half dividing wall, and it was small, tiny bedroom, no doors, no bedrooms, just one tiny little bathroom with the door on it, and everything else was just open plan living. This is myself, my husband, and beautiful Stephanie, who was almost 2, and then we had our baby due in, I think, 5 months' time. So that was an adventure. And it was so awesome. Like, there's so many great things about that time. We spent so much time outside on the farm. We did a lot of gardening. The downside is, you live at least 20 minutes away from everything. So that made it tricky. But honestly, the Lord used that time. Now looking back, I can see so clearly, like he called us out. Like, we had to move about an hour and 15 minutes away from everything we knew and everyone we loved. And that's hard. Like, that's a decent amount of time. And it almost felt like a crash course in what was going to take place when we moved here to America. We had to change churches. We had to develop new friendship groups and communities. We had to explore a whole new region of like where to shop, where to find groceries, where to take kids for activities. It was a whole new shift. And looking back, I can now see the Lord's kindness in sort of like, that was like the soft launch. And I remember, the church that we left, we'd been there for over 12 years, or for me at least, and like at least a decade. And I just remember thinking, like, if I ever had to leave this church, I would just be so heartbroken and devastated. Like, I never want to leave. And I don't know how else to say this, but I felt such a peace that we were doing the right thing when it was time to leave. And I wasn't as sad as I thought we were going to be. And I think that that's just a really great reminder of, like, when the Lord calls you to do something, it doesn't always mean it's going to be easy, but I think he just leads you in a certain kind of peace that it's the right thing, even though it's hard. So we did that. We lived out there on the farm for nearly let me get this right, 1.5 years. And during that time, we found out that we both won the green card, which is crazy in and of itself, because it's very rare to win it, and then let alone 2 people in the same family. So that was another like green light for us. We were like, oh, okay, God, I think you're leading us down this direction. Then we slowly started to share the news with our family about it. And that was tough, because I'm an only child, and that's really hard. It was really hard on my mum. It was really hard on saying goodbye to my grandparents, and it was just hard all around. And yeah, I think I'll speak to this a bit later and what I've learned through this process, but obedience is not necessarily easy. So we won the green card, and as we moved through the process, it started to slow down a bit, and we were getting nervous about whether or not we would, get through to the next round. So after you win the green card, you have to fill out a really long application. So the green card does not guarantee your entry into the US. It just means, okay, great, you have now been accepted to officially apply for the diversity visa. So we both did that. And then you just wait and wait and wait, because your application goes into a number ranking system, and they are just going through the numbers. And say they might allocate like 20,000 visas to Africa, but then to Australia, they might only allocate 2,000, because smaller country, smaller population. And so, and basically there's 55,000 visas a year that are offered, but if one person has 10 people in their family, that's 10 visas that get taken. So it's a very slow process. You're waiting and waiting. And we were starting to get towards the middle of the year now, and it was getting to the point where we needed to make some decisions. We were like, okay, we think that America is going to happen, but we're also not getting any sort of what's the word? We're not getting any indication from the visa process about whether or not we're getting closer to being accepted. So we knew we needed to make some decisions, and we were praying through that. We needed some answers by a certain time. And it just so happened that on the day that we needed to make the call, we get a phone call in the 11th hour, so to speak. And that really confirmed our move to the US. And it was pretty undeniable. That was just like another God thing. We're like, okay, this is so clear now. Like we're all steam ahead on this train. So after we got that call that really solidified what we were doing, that we were moving to the States, things started to get real. I would say the spiritual warfare came on strong, and what I am learning is that radical obedience does not come without retaliation. It does not come without resistance. And looking back now through a lot of the things that we experienced as a family, I can say, oh, yep, that was warfare, or that was just intense pressure of time. And I will now tell you what we went through. So my children both got really sick. They both got really bad flus. My daughter got an ear infection. She had to go on antibiotics for. I got really sick. I struggled with back pain, like really bad, debilitating back pain for the last 2 months before we got on the plane to America. And then I even still struggled with it once we got here. My dad came to visit us for the last month or so before we went to America, and he had to be hospitalized. He went to the ER. He had some major issues there. And then another dear friend of ours was also hospitalized and was given a life-threatening diagnosis. There was family tension and stuff to sort out there. And then there was some really major stuff that I cannot get into on this podcast. But the step of faith towards this was not without its hurdles. And it helped me realize that acting on faith, doing things that the Lord is asking you to do in obedience, it does not necessarily mean it's going to be easy or comfortable. And I think, I don't know, I just always thought when you walk the path that God has given you, you do the things that he's asking for you, asking of you or leading you to, that there's this I think we confuse the peace of God for the ease of God. And that's just not the case. You look at the Bible, gives us story after story of people who followed the Lord, and it was not easy and it was not comfortable. I think of Abraham, I think of Gideon, I think of Esther, I think of Jonah, I think of Moses. Even Jesus himself prayed if there was another way. And yeah, I just keep thinking that's probably the biggest takeaway I've learned from this, is that the peace of God is not to be confused with the ease or comfort of God. And something can be 100% correct, and you can be faithful and obedient to him and it not be comfortable at all. At all. And we are still going to go forward anyway, because I would rather be with God in what He's asked me to do and be covered by Him and be uncomfortable than be comfortable in a place that I have no protection. And that's what we did. And I don't really know what the enemy's purpose was in throwing all of that junk our way right before we left, because it wasn't going to change us going. If anything, I think sometimes the enemy tries to get into your ear and say, see, you're making a mistake. This isn't going to be how you thought it was going to be. If anything, he tries to tempt you with the doubt of like, you're not listening to the Lord and this is wrong. You're never going to make it. You should stay here, or whatever it is. I mean, obviously he must see something that we don't, but I still don't even know completely why we are here. But I know that God's good, and I know that wherever He leads is His best plan for our life. So yeah, no turning back. We booked our flights. We sold a bunch of stuff. We did multiple trips to Vinnie's and Salvo's and Facebook Marketplace. Like we packed our life up into 6 boxes, 6 cardboard boxes, 2 large suitcases, and then like the kids' stuff. And we got on our one-way ticket, or we booked our one-way ticket, and then came the day that we flew out of Sydney. That was interesting, honestly, guys. The shuttle bus arrived, saying goodbye to my parents, to the couple that had graciously let us live with them for the last year and a bit. I can feel the lump swelling in my throat. I feel the swirl of emotion, the adrenaline, just the weeks, the months, the years that we put into planning this, and it's finally happening. Like, have you ever been planning for something for so long and then it's actually taking place? This was like, it was like a shock and sigh of relief all at once. And I remember getting into that shuttle bus and, the driver closing the door, heading down the hill, out onto the street. And Ryan and I just like cry I don't know. I can't speak for him, but I remember feeling relief. I remember feeling excitement. I remember feeling nervous. I remember the sadness of leaving everything I've known behind, but also the excitement of what's ahead. And it was just all coexisting in that moment. And it was big. It was huge. And now that we're here, we've been here nearly 3 months, and it's so clear to me that the Lord led us here. It's so clear to me that He has a plan beyond our comprehension, and He has planted Ryan in a really great work environment. We love the team there. We found a church instantly, and they are so beautiful. Love our church family so much. We've started to make friends. We have been able to buy a home and just settle down with the kids, and it's just been super, super lovely. And it's, dare I say, this side, being in the US, there has been an ease to it. There has been such a smoothness to it, and I really believe that that's the Lord saying, see, don't doubt what I have for you. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to God and His generosity to us and His faithfulness. And it's just been, despite like the discomfort leading up to it, He's here. God is here in our midst, and we are where we're meant to be. And if I can leave you with anything from this story, I guess I want to say this as my closing thought, because I think the idea of moving overseas or starting over in your life feels very glamorous, and it can feel very exciting. And yes, there's definitely parts of that. But if I can just be real, there was no confetti on the plane when we boarded, and there was no big like song and dance about it. It was just all very normal. It was all very normal and unromantic. And I think sometimes we're waiting for that big, like shiny, flashy moment. And I just noticed in my walk with the Lord, like even the big stuff, as you approach it and as you walk through it, it's just not as flashy as you think it's going to be. And it's just normal. And it's just the voice of God leading you in faith. And yeah, I think about the story with Elijah and how, God wasn't in the big storm and he wasn't in the earthquake, but he was in the whisper. And if we hadn't had that conversation with our friend years ago about America and just resurfacing those dreams in our hearts, and if we just hadn't let ourselves go there to think about it, then I don't know if we would even be here. But yeah, if there's like that small voice, more often than not, I think it's the Lord. And I'm just learning to lean in and be more attuned to that. And don't dismiss what he may be leading you to in your life. So I hope that was encouraging and you got something from this conversation. As always, I really appreciate that you would take the time to listen. And if you liked it, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Share it with a friend. And I would be super grateful if you do leave a review. They help the podcast a lot in more ways than you've realized. And even sharing on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you are. You're probably all millennials or Gen Z, so I doubt you're on Facebook much. But yeah, I appreciate you all. Thanks for tuning in, and we will chat again soon.